WWL Louisiana News at 6 begins with breaking news.
On the tail end of her career as New Orleans mayor, LaToya Cantrell has now been indicted as part of a federal investigation. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Katie Moore. Mayor Cantrell and her bodyguard, Jeffrey Vappy, are facing several charges from a federal grand jury. The indictment lists 11 federal charges that include conspiracy and fraud stemming from an intimate relationship between the two and their alleged efforts to conceal it. The city of New Orleans just sounded a statement about the situation, saying, quote, "The mayor's attorney, Eddie Castang, recently received the information and is thoroughly reviewing the document. Until his review is complete, the city will not comment further on this matter." This has been a situation unfolding throughout the day, and Chief Investigative Reporter David Hammer joining us more with the allegations. He's joining us live now with more on these allegations. David, 11 counts against the mayor, more than that against her and Vappy together.
Yeah, that's right, Katie. It's a historic day in Alaska with the summit between Russia and the United States, but it's a historic day in New Orleans because the sitting mayor has been indicted by a federal grand jury, charged as part of an 18-count superseding indictment against her former bodyguard, Jeffrey Vappy. 12 counts specifically address the mayor's actions, and those include conspiracy, false statements, and obstruction of justice. Now, the grand jury alleges Cantrell and Vappy began an intimate relationship around October 2021. They used their official city positions to spend time together while Vappy claimed to be on duty providing mayoral security. This allegedly included false time cards, false travel expense forms, and misuse of taxpayer-funded trips, costing the city of New Orleans over $70,000 just for Vappy's expenses. They allegedly concealed the relationship and gave false statements to the FBI and to a federal grand jury. Vappy allegedly submitted time cards claiming to work full shifts while actually engaged in personal activities with Cantrell. And Cantrell allegedly signed off on false travel expense forms showing trips as purely official business expenses. Cantrell allegedly deleted thousands of WhatsApp messages with Vappy, and the indictment alleges that Cantrell lied under oath to the grand jury about producing all of those messages. Now, acting U.S. Attorney Michael Simpson held a press conference just a little while ago, and here's what he had to say.
This indictment does not allege that a relationship constitutes a crime. It also does not allege that the criminal activity occurred on merely a handful of discrete days, or that the behavior was limited to a small series of discrete actions. Rather, it reflects the prosecution of two public officials alleged to have engaged in a years-long continuing fraud scheme that used public money for personal ends by exploiting their power and their authority.
Now by Matt Chester, former federal prosecutor who actually was involved in the indictment and prosecution of Mayor Ray Nagin back in 2014. And Matt, we know that there's actually another case that's quite similar here. The former mayor of Nashville, Tennessee, was pled guilty to a state charge involving money, involving an affair with her bodyguard. Do we learn anything from that experience here, and does it apply to what Mayor Cantrell is facing?
I think the answer is yes and no. That case was, as you mentioned, a state case brought by the local district attorney's offices and state law enforcement agencies. This, of course, is federal. That case involved a mayor who resigned, who pled guilty. She was given probation. One distinction between this case and that case, at least as far as what's been made public, is the allegations of the obstructive conduct by the mayor. And that's obviously going to be a challenge for her as she prepares to defend this case. The lying to the grand jury, lying to federal law enforcement, the allegations of swearing out a false affidavit. Both have similarities because it's about an affair, but this has a little bit more of that cover-up conduct that the prosecutors are going to be looking at.
Is it the type of thing where it's not just about the crime, it's the cover-up here, the alleged cover-up, that really makes this more significant potentially for Mayor Cantrell?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody understands, having affairs and not wanting affairs to be public, but the adage kind of holds true here. The cover-ups may be worse than the underlying conduct, and here, at least according to the grand jury indictment, there are allegations of that over the course of months and years when you have text messages and WhatsApp messages that have been deleted, lying to the grand jury, some of the other things we mentioned. So, yeah, I think that bears out here.
Yeah, and Katie, again, this is a case where these are only allegations, and a challenge for prosecutors will be they have to bring this to court now, potentially at a trial if it gets that far, and convince a jury that this is not just about a romantic relationship, it's about alleged corruption. Reporting live from Federal Criminal Court, David Hammer, WWL Louisiana.
All right, thanks so much, David. And I'm joined now here in the studio with investigative reporter Mike Perlstein. You know, David talked about the cover-up that's alleged here. At its core, what we're talking about is also the misuse of essentially public funds on the part of both the mayor and on Jeffrey Vappy's part by making these trips around the country and around the world together, 14 of them alleged by prosecutors, and doing that using public money.
Right, and that's actually very important when it comes to federal sentencing guidelines. The dollar amount of an alleged fraud determines the amount of potential prison time and really the stakes of what the mayor and Jeffrey Vappy are facing here. Now, we know that they put a dollar amount on Vappy's travel at $70,000 plus. Then you have the times when he was accused of collecting city money for police work when he was actually allegedly engaged in his intimate relationship with the mayor. So all that tallies up. But I can tell you that talking to some defense attorneys, they are seeing that there are some potential weak spots in this indictment. For example, where do you draw the line between official duties in either protecting the mayor or her business? And, you know, some of this alleges intimate relationships in the Pontalba apartment in which Vappy was there, but who is to say that she's not reading over official documents, working late, burning the midnight oil? So once again, I'm just giving the perspective from criminal defense attorneys.
Yes.
See that this is not a slam dunk on all counts.
Absolutely not. And, you know, I think prosecutors made it clear that there were two key points there, that, you know, she went on trips that did not require a bodyguard in many instances, and they pretty specifically spelled out what behavior was happening in places where they could prove it based on those communications that they got. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining me with that perspective. Now, Cantrell's bodyguard, Jeffrey Vappy, as we mentioned, was already facing allegations of fraud and making false statements before today's indictment. Also related to all of this, though, Amelia Strahan joining us live now with more on the charges that Vappy's facing and how that all connects to his alleged relationship with the mayor again. Amelia?
Now, Katie, this indictment states that Jeffrey Vappy's relationship with the mayor started back in 2021, and Vappy is already facing charges related to questionable clock-ins when he was supposed to be working as the mayor's bodyguard. This time last year, just over a year ago rather, a grand jury indicted the former NOPD officer on 7 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of false statements. Over the course of their 3-year alleged affair, the feds say the couple spent intimate time together while Vappy was supposed to be on the clock. According to the original indictment, he collected around $7,000 in city pay when he was spending intimate time with Cantrell. Vappy pleaded not guilty to those charges. United States Attorney Michael Simpson stressed today's allegations are about much more than just a romantic relationship.
It reflects the prosecution of 2 public officials alleged to have engaged in a years-long continuing fraud scheme that used public money for personal ends by exploiting their power and their authority.
Now, the indictment states that that relationship lasted until Vappy retired last year. Reporting from New Orleans, Amelia Strahan, WWL Louisiana.
All right, much more to come on that part of this story. Thanks so much, Amelia. And reactions are pouring in from state and local leaders about the federal indictment against Cantrell. Lily Cummings joining us live outside of City Hall with more on what they're saying. Lily?
Yeah, well, Katie, as you mentioned at the top of the show, we finally heard from the mayor's office within the last hour saying that they aren't going to be providing any further comment. Now, before that, we heard from at least 5 of 7 city council members, many of them saying that they were praying and wishing the best for the mayor and her family as they navigate this indictment, also saying that they remain focused on their constituents. Now, of course, we have 2 council members who are vying for the title of mayor right now as we enter this we approach rather this October mayoral election. Now, those 2 council members said in statements, Oliver Thomas saying, quote, "The announcement today reminds us of the need to let the justice system work in a fair, timely fashion and without regard to politics or preference. I'm praying for Mayor Cantrell, her family, and all New Orleanians. These are critical times for our city to get back on track and to stay focused on building a city that works and thrives for everyone. Let us all hope for a swift resolution to the situation that will bring justice. We must unify as a city and focus on the challenges we face together." And Council Vice President Helena Moreno saying, quote, "The mayor is entitled to a presumption of innocence and a vigorous defense." Councilmember Moreno's focus remains on a new way forward for New Orleans, restoring basic services, creating opportunity, and putting people first will continue to be her priority. And so far, Katie, we have not heard from Governor Jeff Landry. However, Attorney General Liz Murrill told us she is monitoring this matter closely. Reporting live from City Hall, Lily Cummings, WWL Louisiana.
Okay, thanks so much, Lily.